Hey guys, welcome to the latest episode of the SaaS Sessions podcast. Today we have Vikas Potta on the show. Vikas is the VP of Sales at FusionCharts. FusionCharts helps you build beautiful charts for your web and mobile applications. I think FusionCharts is one of the earliest SaaS companies in India, which was started in 2003, and like it now serves around 28,000 customers globally. So prior to FusionCharts, Vikas was a founding member at Zepo, which is an e-commerce platform which helps e-commerce companies do more. So, hey Vikas, such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you, Sunil. Happy to have a chat today and, hope to have a very interactive conversation going forward.
Definitely. I mean, like we've been talking about doing this since months now, and I think today is the day. Today is the day we finally, got to do it. So, yeah, I think it's really interesting. Yeah. So Vikas, can you walk us through like your journey into the SaaS ecosystem, right? You were the founding member of a company called Zepo, and then you joined FusionCharts, and now you're heading the sales division at FusionCharts. So can you walk us through like how like you landed into SaaS and how has your experience been so far?
Absolutely. I think, when I started working at Zepo, the whole thought process of SaaS was still very nascent in India. Back then, we were gung-ho about what we were planning to do at Zepo because e-commerce was budding. We could still see the likes of Flipkart doing very well. Amazon didn't have a very strong presence in India yet.
Yeah.
This is early 2011, 11-ish sort of those days. So, what we wanted to do was help these small mom and pop store owners to start selling online, obviously to expand their reach and target customers outside of their physical presence. And when then we realized that, these are folks who would not want to pay us for an annual contract at once, and we usually would charge them for about 3 to 6 months at once, and slowly and steadily realize that the likes of Shopify cracked this
Mm-hmm.
entire model of helping people build e-commerce stores using SaaS, and that's when we started replicating the SaaS model for e-commerce in India. So honestly, it has been a very interesting experience from trying to understand how easy or difficult it is to get people to accept this model, to now looking at SaaS as a very common term that we come across on a daily basis. So yeah, I think it's been a very enriching experience, and hopefully we might have some better days going forward for SaaS in India as well.
Awesome. And then what about your time at FusionCharts, right? Like after Zepo, you joined FusionCharts. How is that experience so far for you?
Yeah, so there's a startling difference between what I used to do at Zepo and what I've been doing here at
Yeah.
FusionCharts over the
Mm-hmm.
last few years. So Zepo predominantly was focused, in the SMB market, and more so for folks within the country. So the sales that we used to do were mostly domestic. Though there were no restrictions in the kind of customers that we would target across the states. But then yeah, with FusionCharts, it's mostly global. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, the horizon is wide enough. We not just target SMBs and mid market, but we have a lot of enterprise customers, a lot of Fortune 500 companies using FusionCharts as
Yeah.
well. So it's obviously been a learning curve. At the same time, has given me a chance to understand how the landscape is and how things change when the stakes are higher. So and obviously over the last 4 or 5 months, I've also gotten to see what happens when things are not in your favor, and something sort of a pandemic hits you where you're not prepared, and how exactly do you plan for those times, and how exactly do you motivate your team, and what do you do to ensure you keep your numbers on track. So I think it's been a very fulfilling
Mm-hmm.
experience, and hopefully that continues from here on.
Got it. And then what all things do you take care of FusionCharts? Like, when you it's VP of sales. So is it like inbound, outbound, renewals and partnerships?
Absolutely. So my role currently entitles a combination of all of these. Predominantly, FusionCharts is an inbound focused organization. So most of our folks are on the inside sales side of things, but then we also do have a very strong channel partner ecosystem. So channel partners also contribute a decent chunk of revenue to us. So that's also something that I'm responsible for, as well as account expansion and renewals. Obviously, because these are the customers who've been using FusionCharts over the years, and obviously these are the ones that are on the major focus. So my role involves a combination of generating new sales from the inbound as well as the outbound activities, majorly focused on inbound, heading sales from the channel sales side of things along with our channel partner manager, and as well as account expansion and renewals for our existing accounts. So it's a combination of all of these.
Got it. So there is no dedicated account management function at Fusion Charts is because I've seen most of the SaaS companies, they would have net new managed by someone else and a different function versus all the renewals and expansions managed by a different function. And then partnerships or channel sales is again a different function. So how is that like structured in Fusion Charts then?
See, we would call all of these as mini modules more than functions. We've
Uh-huh.
always been very light in terms of, talking on the number of members on the team. So we do have specific set of people working on renewals and account expansion, a few people only focusing on NetU, and then a couple of people on the channel sales side of things. But I mean, at the end of the day, the way we look at it, most of them work together, and it's sort of a mini, sort of mini modules working together to form a big team. So yeah, that's how it is. These are not separate functions for us, but then most of them work together and then form a cumulative team. As far as the roles are concerned, yes, people who are
Got
taking
it.
care of NetU are the ones who only take care of our new leads and new customers, and the existing accounts are handled by our account management team who also take care of account expansion. So yeah, that's how it goes.
Got it. Got it. And then how has these different modules, like, at Fusion Charts have been affected by COVID? I've been talking to many, like, sales leaders and customer success leaders in different SaaS companies around the world, and everyone serve different kind of personas to different industries. So everyone was affected very differently. So how has, like, Fusion Charts, or how were these individual modules affected because of COVID?
Well, I think, like you very correctly pointed, almost all of these guys have been affected, and in fact, we have been affected as well because of COVID-19. But the fact is that we have seen some trends changing. Initially, we have had a lot of people come to us and mention that budgets have been frozen, and then there are no internal approvals coming in place, and then things might be delayed, purchases might be stalled. To now, people mentioning that they have a budget, but they need a little more time to be able to close and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
in the initial couple of months, I think there was a reduction in the number of leads. Yes, we had fewer leads that we had gotten. Our renewals had taken a lot more time to close. Account expansion was very slow. But I think what we've also seen from mid-June to early July is that the trends have been changing. A lot more people are willing to talk to us on our live chat. Our number of leads have sort of increased by about 100% by this channel alone in the last 45 days. The number of leads have increased, the number of conversations have increased from live chat. This is essentially people who are willing to talk to us, who are otherwise more prone to asking us for physical meetings or asking us for a few demos or calls. These are folks who are now coming on chat and trying to put up a conversation. I think it's to do with these guys understanding that this is the way going forward. So that's one
Yeah.
change that we have seen. The other change that I've seen is that, again, the positive side of things, we have seen online self-serve orders increase again in the last 1.5 month, obviously owing to the same trend as far as live chat is concerned.
Got
Initially,
it.
initially, like I said, a lot more people wanted time to close, and their internal process and approvals were taking much longer than before. But now the closure time seems to be reducing, again thanks to most of these folks working from home and a lot of frictionless work that's happening across organizations. It is helping us to close faster and move faster. So that's another pie that we are more than happy to eat at this moment. So yeah, I think things are changing, even though there was a slight lull for the first couple of months, let's say about March, Aprilish. But then over the last
Uh-huh.
1.5 months, there is some positivity for sure that we are seeing.
Got it. And then, so in one of the earlier episodes, right? So I was speaking with, or I hosted Francois from Algolia, right? So he had global pipeline generation for Algolia. So he was saying, like, because of this, he also faced similar issues, and then there was a lot of changes that were happening based on different teams, based on different geographies, because different geos are affected differently. So, but one thing that he found out that he and his team doing more is like talking to the marketing team a lot, and they didn't have a lot of communication or collaboration happening between the demand gen team and the marketing team, right? So in or the sales and marketing alignment as we speak, right? So this particular thing has a lot of effect on how everything functions, right? And many companies that I've spoken to have a good sales and marketing alignment, and many companies, like, are still struggling, or they don't have like a great sales and marketing alignment. And a few like, few companies or few people like Francois from Algolia, so they found themselves to be doing more collaboration with the marketing team, because when they're speaking to their customers or prospects, so they are in need of more time and more education, and they're researching more now, maybe because the budgets are frozen or something like that. But then to maintain a healthy relationship with these prospects, the sales guys have want to have a lot of collaterals with them or some kind of resources, right? So my point is, like, do you also saw the collaboration between your sales and your marketing team rise in some aspect at the Fusion Charts?
Definitely, yes. In fact, we have seen a combination of that and much more, right? What a lot of
Uh-huh.
us have also spent time, I mean, during the lull period is sort of change our entire communication strategies, change our messaging. Individually, the sales teams have also, spent some time in trying to change their templates, maybe better, our calling scripts. And obviously, we have had a lot of time spent with the marketing teams, especially the product marketing team, to change the way we handle our sales enablement materials and sort of understand the communication going forward. So I think it's been a good learning exercise, more so because, when the number of leads were higher and, when we were only, thinking about meeting our pipelines and trying to ensure that the conversions are taken care of, it was
Mm-hmm.
more about trying to replicate the process that has worked. And it was more of an engine that was, functioning every single day. Yeah, but with the downtime, I think people have taken a step back, tried to pause for a minute, see if there's something better that they can do. It's, it might not be a revisit of the entire strategy, but even small tweaks here and there, at the end of the day, can have big results going forward. So I think this has been a good period for all of us to step back, sit down calmly, and then understand, what has been working and what can be done better in the next coming months. So in a way, I think that's a good place to be in, especially if you're on the sales or the marketing side of things, because we haven't really gotten such a chance over the last couple of years, at least, because we've only been continuously looking at hitting our numbers and, trying to do better than the previous month. But we've not really gotten a chance to sit back and, rekindle or change the way that we've been working on the communication side of things. So yeah, it's a good learning for sure.
That's really interesting. And then talking about, like, you one thing you mentioned, right? Like, you didn't see a lot of churn, and so that I assume that, a reduction in churn would also be. I mean, it's not directly related, but then if you're not seeing a churn, that means you would be also seeing a lot of renewals and expansions that would be happening, because if they're really happy, they're not churning out, and they would come back to you and say that we want more, we want to try different products from Fusion Charts, and then thus they're expanding it to different teams in the same org. So like, so was there a rise in renewals and expansions in this period as well for you guys?
Yes, in fact, to be honest, that was a conscious decision that we took, during the dull period that we had, especially around March, Aprilish. A lot of people, what we tend to do is take the easier way out by sort of buying lists and carpet bombing and, sort of spray and pray if the number of leads reduce and your existing customers are not talking to you. But what we started doing was initiating a lot more conversations with existing customers, trying to understand a lot more about use cases. Like I said again, right, because we've been talking very frequently to product marketing teams, we were trying to put together a bunch of new case studies and use cases that we can use to promote our product featurings in the coming months. So what that has helped is it has given sort of a new entryway for us to be able to get through these existing customers and also promote our new set of products and offerings that we have. So that has led to
Mm-hmm.
increase in account expansion. Obviously, the more and more accounts that we were landing at and we could expand, it also helped us understand that renewals are going to be a very easy walk. So that particular plan that we took really helped us sail through. Though the net new sales had reduced, we were able to
Mm-hmm.
cover up the deficit of the revenue by expanding on the new accounts and increasing on the renewal side of things.
Oh
So
man. Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was helpful. And one of the other learnings that we used is something that we have started putting in to the net new side of things as well, is sort of offering multi-year contracts to people, right? Instead of trying to
Got it.
convince, let's say, 10 or 20 or 30 people, even if you were able to onboard one customer with a multi-year contract, that would have been a lot more valuable, because during the tough times it was
Mm-hmm.
very difficult to get hold of good opportunities and talk to customers with a very positive mindset. So we have had to work on this way, and because we knew that existing customers who've been using Fusion Charts were happy to onboard with us for the new set of offerings as well, so we thought might as well use multi-year contracts to people who are interested to work with us. So that is another thing that has worked, and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully that will continue to work in the next months.
That's amazing, man. So what are strategies that you had for supporting these renewals and expansion and putting more focus on that aspect? So I'd like to know, were there any strategies that you thought that you would try during these uncertain times and they didn't work out? Because there's so much learnings that you might have got from some failures as well.
Absolutely. I think quite a few, right? I mean, especially what happens is when things are not going your way, right? I mean, I would not say prerogative, but you tend to start experimenting very often. So that said, we
Mm-hmm.
also did experiment with a lot of
Yeah.
campaigns and activities early on. And then the moment we saw a few of them working, obviously it's human tendency to double down on that and start focusing on numbers. I mean, as much as I'd like to say that I want to experiment, at the end of the day, I'm a sales guy as well, right? And I would
Right.
want to ensure we all exceed our quotas and crush the numbers that are given to us. So uh, that way, I think, yes, we did have a few of them that didn't work. Honestly, we tried to push a few opportunities through the pipeline by offering a lot more discounts than usual. That was more of a last minute step that we had to take. But then we realized that discounts didn't really work.
Mm.
What we also did was trying to push discounts on the renewal side of things. That also didn't really work. That is when we
Uh-huh.
realized that, okay, maybe it is not right for us to expect all set of people who are interested to buy it. It might be specific to a few industries or specific to a few use cases. That is when we went back and sort of redid our jobs to be done exercise with a few of our
Got it.
customers from our self-serving industries. Realized that, okay, fine, these are 7 or 8 use cases that have been gung ho in this period as well, and we doubled down on that, and we created lists of customers for all these use cases, and then reached out to all of them, started having individual conversations, and then as and when we dig deeper, we realized that there is an opportunity for us to expand, and that's how we
Nice.
fueled that to the account expansion side of things. So what failed in terms of us trying to reach out to every single person by way of luring into discounts helped us come out with this particular option where he said that, what, okay, this is the learning, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
this might work for us. And thankfully it did.
That's really amazing. Figuring out what the pattern is and then segmenting your set of customers and prospects and then only going behind the segment that the pattern works for. That's an amazing thing. And then since you're into sales, right? I want to ask, like, was there any particular trick that you guys used or that you guys figured out while you were selling during this pandemic, and that worked for every call, right? Was there some pattern that you found out that by like saying XYZ things or like doing XYZ things, there's a high chance that this company will buy?
Well, I would not say a pattern, but I think a few things that we've been doing over the last few months have worked. And the more I read about a lot more people doing it, the more I've started to believe that, I mean, agree that these are things that we should have done previously as well, but then at the end of the day we start getting pushy, we start
Yeah.
trying to push people to close by the moment you look at you reaching the end of the quarter, or you're trying to ensure that you are not able to reach your numbers, you start being a little too pushy and irritating, right? But one of the things that I've seen during COVID is the more options that you give to a prospective customer to get their way out from you, right? Not being
Mm-hmm.
very pushy. I think that is when we have seen a lot more conversations going forward, right? I mean, few
Mm-hmm.
things like, hey, Sunil, I understand that this might not be a right time for you. Last when we spoke, this was on one of your top priorities. But with what's happening, in your place, if you think this is something that we'll have to look at maybe in a month or two, I'd be more than happy to revisit. And, let's hope you're sanitizing well and you're taking care of what you're doing at home, right? I think small nuggets like these started, I think, building a few conversations where people start talking about what's happening at their own place. I've had people
Makes sense.
who,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, who write to me and say, hey, Vikas, absolutely right, man. You know what? This is a big deal right now. A lot of people, in fact, came to me and said that, they're budgeting for safety at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, when would you imagine talking about their home budget when you're on a sales call, right? You would obviously
Right.
talk about their work or their lifestyle, but then there are these folks who would talk to me about their budget and say, you know what, dude, this is what we have had to do because of COVID. And the more and more personal that you get, I think going forward was very easy because
Mm-hmm.
it helps me sort of maneuver through their entire decision making process, understand what's going through their mind, and sort of take it slowly, right? So yeah, I think if you are giving your prospects a way out from the
Mm-hmm.
entire conversation. That is a big win in COVID, because everybody is stuffed with a lot of emails, everybody is stuffed with discounts, everybody is stuffed with, please give me a 15-minute conversation to showcase my product, etc. And especially with COVID, everybody is sort of desperate, right? So we sort of tried the other way out, where we always wanted our prospects to get their way out. If you're not keen, perfect, we know there's
Right.
something more important on priority for you, we'll talk to you later, right? But I think that has sort of worked, not just for us, but the more I read, I see that it's been working for a lot more people as well. So yeah, that's something that I'd love to continue.
Great. And this would be on an inbound perspective, right? And then from an outbound perspective, things are different, right? Because then you are reaching out to someone who you think would be interested in your product. So did you see the same pattern or same things working in outbound as well? Or you guys saw something very different for outbound?
Well, I think the outbound side of things were a tad bit different, but traditionally, what a lot of good folks would do on outbound is something that would have worked even now as well. I mean, on the outbound side of things, we tend to just give and not ask, right?
Got it.
Usually
Mm-hmm.
what happens is, I write to someone and I ask them if they want to talk to me, or if they are willing to jump on a call, or if they're willing to join my webinar or whatever, right? So, but what
Mm-hmm.
we have been using the last 3-4 months is to just give information, add a lot more value to this prospective buyer of FusionCharts. And the more and more we used to give, we realize that people are willing to talk to us at their own will. Because like I said, even on the inbound side of things, when we double down on the account expansion, we realized that there are about 7 to 8 use cases that would sprout really well during this period. And add to that the geographies that we knew would do well during these times. So even during outbounds, we only used to target those accounts. So the thought process was very clear, and I think the more value we added to these people, the more interested they were to talk to us. So that's another good learning for us.
Definitely. Like, so yeah, I mean, value driven sales and generating ROI from after providing value is something like most of the companies would focus on as a takeaway from this whole COVID thing, right? This would be a huge learning for many companies out there, and not just discounting, right? Like discounting is there for sure, but then providing value more than like like providing discounts, something like that, right? So yeah, I mean this is really interesting. And then what what are some of the learnings that you got, that you would thank COVID for, right? Like in terms of sales, like so good things happen during COVID, bad things happen, but then in terms of your sales at Fusion Charts, right? So how has COVID improved some processes or some things, because everyone is working remote and everything was disturbed in March and April. So considering the past 3-4 months, what is the new normal for you guys now, and how is it's better than the previous normal?
I think in a way, I mean, though the first 1.5 months were a little dull, I think COVID has done more good than bad, especially for the long run. It
Mm-hmm.
has enabled us to spend a lot more time with each of our reps and talk to them about specific problems rather than focusing on 3 or 4 things that you would do during your weekly or your monthly, one-on-ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
The coaching time has increased. It has helped reps to interact among each other and sort of talk to them. I mean, talk internally about what's working and what's not. And like I said, at least for people like me, it has given time for me to sort of revisit our entire playbooks, right?
Right.
From what sort of scripts do we change? What are the ones that are working? What are the templates that need to change? Are there any changes in the cadences that we'll have to work at? And small nuggets here and there based on the customers that we've been talking to. So in a way, I think this has helped us revisit things that we have not done very often. I mean, as much as I can remember, I think we've not revisited our playbooks at least in the last 6 to 8 months.
Right.
And usually we see sales leaders, revisiting them once or twice every year. But with COVID, I think we have done a lot of revisits in the last 3 months itself. Obviously, with the amount of experimentation that we've been doing, I mean, obviously with the number of leads going down for the first couple of months, we have had to look at them, by and large. But that's a learning that is going to help us in the long run. And the messaging has
Mm-hmm.
also changed. Like one of the first points, like I mentioned, was our number of leads by live chat have increased by about 100%, right? So
Oh.
it was very, very low before COVID. But the
Mm.
fact that people are coming forward or talk to us has helped us understand that, okay, this is one serious channel that you need to look at. And now we have a couple of people who are dedicated that channel and sort of optimize that. And we also have a dashboard where we only look at that particular channel. So it is, sort of opened our eyes into other channels that we otherwise thought would have been not very lucrative before COVID. And with the learning and the coaching time that is increased, I think it's only going to do better from here on. And like one of the other points that you added was we all working from home. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously with us working from home, there's no travel time, a lot more time for
Yeah.
us to focus on our work, not to be worried about a lot of logistics and things like that. So it has given more time for people to do the same amount of tasks that they would do on a daily basis. So things are not rushed. I remember a few members on the sales team talking that, I'll have to hit X dials an hour, or, send Y emails in a day. And now you don't see people talking about that because they can pace their day at their will. And they know
Right.
that they can complete it even though they don't have to clock in X hours, every single day. So in a way, it's good in the long run. And obviously the learnings should be helpful for sure. At least that is my understanding.
Makes sense. And then talking about the talent, right? Like because there are a lot of unemployment which is still happening in India. So how did you give your team a sense of security that hey, your job is safe, right? And you don't need to worry about what's happening outside, but then putting their mind to work, right? And what are some things that you tried talking with your team? So attracting good talent and retaining good talent is really important for any company that want to grow. So can you tell us some things that you tried and that really worked for you?
Definitely, I think, like most of the credit of this goes to the management as well. So one of the first things
Mm-hmm.
that we did, not just with the sales team but across teams at FusionCharts, is reassured all the members that their jobs are not at stake,
Uh-huh.
and we understand that such downturns are very normal in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the first things that we did. In fact, I remember that one of the initial conversations that we had regarding this topic at work was as early as the first week of March.
Mm-hmm.
Even before we saw people losing jobs and people sort of freaking out, right? So
Yeah.
I think that positive mindset that kicked in with a lot of people helped them sort of pace it down. The second thing that we did was spent a lot of time in helping these people become better, helping, in training them and understand what they could do at their job a little better from the very next week or the very next month, increased the frequency of our one-on-ones, increased our internal team interactions. So what that did is people felt a lot more calming presence when they realized that, okay, it's not just me who is in this, it's the other team members who are a part of this as well. And the more and more positivity that you see with people around you, people feel a lot more comfortable and they tend to work together. That's the second thing that at least I have observed. Third is we have sort of understood that COVID can have a negative effect on business. So we did revisit our targets for the last quarter and ensure that the numbers are something that are achievable. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, if there are any glitches here and there, we can sort of cover it up in the later quarters. So those changes also help the sales members realize that, okay, you know what, it doesn't mean that even though there is COVID, I'm still going to hit the same quota. I've been asked to hit something lower, which means, there's an attempt that I can try and get to that, right?
Got it.
Uh, very frankly, we didn't decrease the numbers by much, right? But the fact that we did take a step forward and ensure that we did something from their mindset help people understand that, okay, you know what, this is something possible and I think I can get there, right? So that positive mindset was also very, very helpful. For what we did is, a lot of salespeople, usually like experimenting a lot, right? They know that their numbers, there are things that, they love talking to new customers every other day. They love, having very interactive conversations. But deep down, they also want to work on multiple tasks, which otherwise they don't get a chance to work on, obviously, because of their busy days at work. But with COVID, what we have done is we have helped these people, try their hands and get their hands dirty in a few other tasks that they would otherwise not do. And then that
Mm-hmm.
has helped them be motivated, right? For a few people, running a known campaign, small, very small campaign on their own, trying to break it down to see what things work, what didn't work, trying to share their
Right.
learnings with a few other members, right? And if somebody would talk to me, I'd be like, oh shit, man, I mean, this guy is trying to do something new. Why can't I experiment something on my own, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, and I would come forward to you and say, you know what, Sunil, I think this is one small thing that I want you to do. I mean, want myself to do. Would you give me a permission, right? I mean, more and more people becoming proactive is an indicator that, okay, fine, you're not just worried
Yeah.
about them losing about their jobs, but they're now looking forward to doing something better. So a combination of all
Yeah,
of these
definitely.
things, worked for us. So I think that's good. That's very good.
Yeah, I think survival of the fittest, right? Having a sense of competition in between the team is always healthy. So I think we are reaching to the next part of the podcast, which is the lightning round, right? So I have
Uh,
like three questions for you, Vikas. We'll start. So first one, what do you know about your work now that you wish you would have known when you first started?
I think, what I was not prepared for when I started was dull periods like this. All of us, at least I was always painting rosy pictures and, assume that things are going to be steady paced. I was definitely not prepared for a downturn like this. But now that I've had an experience with, COVID and how, people have been managing things around the world, I think I'm a lot more prepared going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And not just in my playbooks, but even at, any of my future workplaces, I will have a small nugget in my mind that, okay, what if there is a downturn, or if there is something that's going to hit your market, or if there's a recession that you're going to face, this is exactly what you're going to do. And I think that's
Right.
something that would be the case with a lot of other members on my team. So yeah, that's definitely something that I was not prepared for previously, but I'm for sure going forward.
Nice. And so second one. So what did your biggest professional failure teach you?
I think again that's also to do with COVID.
Uh-huh.
This is the early days of March. I mean, this was because we were not able to hit our quarterly numbers for the first quarter of this particular calendar year, Jan, February, March. Very similar to the first point, right? I mean, we didn't have a backup plan, very honestly,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's a failure from a sales manager side of things, because you would always want to have a plan B to be able to reach your targets at the end of the day. But very honestly, we didn't have a very, very strong plan to be able to, cover the losses that we might have had because of such an incident. So I think that's been a very big hit, in at least in the last couple of years in my professional career. But what it has helped me understand is that there's always a way out. It was very easy for me to consider that, what, COVID is going to be the same. The next 6 or 9 months are going to be dull. And, one way would have been to just accept and then sit back and see what others are doing and sort of copy or learn from it and then, replicate, right?
Right.
But what the time has also helped me understand is that, no, there's always a way out regardless of what situation you are in. And thankfully, the next quarter we did really, really well, and we sort of exceeded our numbers as well. So,
Nice.
even from the learnings that we've had during the dull times, if we've been able to pick up and then beat our numbers, I think that's a good sign. I still not feel bad for not being able to hit the numbers in GFM, but it's good that we've been able to come forward and then, beat those numbers.
Got it. And my third and final lightning question, right? So what's the number one thing that has helped you shorten your learning curve?
I think talking to people,
Mm-hmm.
very honestly, I think it's been very, very helpful going out, talking to people, and always asking questions, seeking help. Very often we feel that, you might be shy to go out and ask other sales managers and, ask them, what's working for you. You might always sit back and say, what, I am the guy, I've been here for 10, 15 years. I know what's working, I know what's not working. And then at times you're very, very hesitant to go out and talk to people. But I think what I have learned over the last 5 to 10 years is that the more you talk to people, the more points that you have at the back of the mind to be able to tackle different situations that come your way, come what may.
Yeah.
It's not just, professional career, but also personal. I mean, I'm sure that would be the same case with you, right? When you were talking
Yeah,
to
yeah.
so many people for your podcast recordings, yeah, you would listen to so many stories and so many things that you would otherwise not assume to be the case, right? So I think
Yeah,
talking to
exactly.
people, yeah, that has definitely been the answer. I mean, it might look simple, but trust me, it's a very, very big thing.
No, totally. I 100% agree with that because I've been doing the same since 2014. So yeah, this podcast just got started like year and a half ago, but I've been doing the same things that I do on the podcast since 2014. So that's how much I believe in that. Exactly what you said. So yeah, it's been great speaking with you, Vikas, and thanks a lot for coming on the show and having these amazing insights laid for us today.
Happy to have the conversation, Sunil. Glad that we've been able to cover
Yeah,
more than
finally.
what we wanted to discuss.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah.